I don't think that you want to be wasting bans on it if you are BNK. Finally, they have blue side, right? They didn't have the higher seed going into this one. D+ will not give over first pick Rumble. But they can showcase a lot of different things here. Maybe this is where we see the Senna draft come through. They have a lot of flexibility here. Maybe this time D+ is forced to ban the Vi. Maybe the Maokai goes through for Raptor. See what ends up going down here, as they will ban the Nasus. Okay.
I think that's fair. I mean, that, especially if you're planning on playing closer on Azir more than once, and you know it was picked very early on in the last draft, just got to take it away. I mean, Showmaker can definitely play other stuff into Azir, but if they're not ready for the Nasus, just take it off and take it off the board, and you don't have to deal with it. There's the Ivern ban as well.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm much more about that ban. It's just a S-tier jungle pick right now. Incredibly strong with so many different compositions. So difficult and frustrating to play into. Sometimes it's hard to even see it if you're a spectator watching League of Legends, because we can see everything, right? But if you toggle that vision for just one moment, you could see how difficult it was for BNK to even approach those team fights, know where Moam was going to be, and try to punish the Smolder in any way. Final ban here might be the Senna, Maokai. You know, it's going to be Zyra once again. So it could just be a first pick Maokai here for Raptor. They've already banned the Nasus, though, and Showmaker may just be able to steal the Azir away if you don't lock that in here. So it does feel like almost like a wasted ban if you don't lock that. So
yeah, there's also the Lilia to worry about. But I just feel like Maokai's the jungler outside of Ivern. You know, the trees kind of ruling the just Renekton. Never mind.
This time, I wonder if D+ are just so confident they would slam down like Azir Lee Sin. Like it's another timeline, it's another year. But the Azir feels very strong to pick up here. And there's a multitude of other picks you could get. I mean, Azir plus Maokai doesn't have a lot of great synergy. It might just be Maokai plus AD for Showmaker here in the mid lane. Doesn't have to show it right now. I think like Zeri could be very flexible here. Could be Zeri mid, could be Zeri bottom.
How about Senna?
The priority just doesn't seem that high here yet, so I'm not going to...
I don't feel like Moham's really a Senna player, but I don't know. Especially with Maokai, you just have so much defensive threat between those two.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do agree with you. Does really give away what you're going for in your comp early at this stage in the draft. Corki will be the option for Showmaker here, even with the Phosphorus Bomb nerfs on this patch. Still quite strong. You opt into the Maokai, so you need an AD mid. You don't need it, but that is generally how it goes with damage profiles. Lilia will be locked in response here. And is it just going to be closer on Tristana? Are we taking a step back? It'll be actually the Ashe prioritized once again very heavily here by Henna.
Yeah, definitely kind of Henna's calling card when it comes to AD carries. Loves his Ashe. Arrows are generally pretty on point. He wasn't able to play the last game, so we still don't even really know where he's at in this series.
This could be an AD carry pick, or it could be GP for Kingen. I feel like would be one of the best picks they could get. They already have this Maokai setup here, and the scaling Gangplank would be very strong in this draft, and he's laned very well into Renekton's in the past, but he will not be locking that one away just yet. It will be prioritizing Moham's Rel. She is still currently undefeated on, so it looks weird for the draft bio to grab this early, but it guarantees that he will have it. So very specific Moham tech coming into this one.
Yeah, and they have a lot of threats. You mentioned the GP. There's other top lane picks you might be worried about, like Kennen or Nar, but there's also like 17 different AD carries that Aiming can play. So he's like, well, I don't really have to pick MF here. We can just wait and see what they leave available.
Yeah.
And there's that GP ban.
I mean, he can still play Zeri in this draft, I feel. It's totally viable, totally fine. A little bit trickier with the Rel into the Ashe, but can just survive the early laning phase, or maybe even lane swap and not care. As Braum will once again be taken away from the Ashe lane. See if it's going to be a Kennen or a Nar ban here onto Kingen, because one of those two gets through no matter what. You already do have this lack of AP. Sure, you have Maokai, but it's not strong AP, so Kennen feels like it fits the bill here. Plus, the synergy between his ultimate and Rel's ultimate is quite strong. Instead, they will ban the MF, which doesn't feel as strong to me, to be honest with you, Valdez. I mean, yes, MF Rel is incredibly strong as a duo, But aiming's just like, well, I didn't want to play that anyways. I'd rather play a more hyper carry scaling pick like Ezreal or Zeri.
Yeah.
And he is looking happy to lock that one away. Or an even more scaling pick in the Smolder again.
Yeah, I mean, he got away with it big time in game 1, and there was 0 punish for the Smolder. This time I feel like there are definitely better angles on the side of BNK, and I don't think the early game will turn out quite the same way. There's that Zeri mid for closer into the Corki. Should have a better time into nerfed Corki, and also Alistair was left available into Rel.
Yeah, pretty strong into Rel. Not going to feel amazing at punishing a Smolder early by any means.
All right.
Well, we're just easy now.
Oh, come on.
I mean, top Smolder has been quite strong. Kingan's our resident top Smolder player. But is this going to be the Cassante to come through here instead? A bit of a different option than I expected, to be honest with you, Valdez. Very strong. Great front line for an extremely scaling composition with this Smolder. But I thought maybe they were just going to index into more aggression, more power, more lockdown onto this Zeri. Because the one thing that I find to be very difficult for D+'s composition to do is to stop Closer from carrying team fights consistently with this draft. They don't have a Nautilus. They have a Maokai, but getting the Maokai ult to actually connect with the Zeri when you have this Renekton that's going to be able to stand in front, when you have this Cow that's going to be able to ult and stand in front, it will be difficult to lock Closer down. Then front-to-backs can be possible. But you need to be winning those fights before the Smolder just presses Q and wins the team fight. I feel like this draft here for BNK is very strong, but very tricky to execute, and you really do need to snowball the game early. And with Zeri, you could definitely do that. You could definitely get your certified moment. I might be doing it right here in the second game. But if the Zeri is just naturally scaling by farming, doesn't get any kills, I feel like she cannot come online fast enough to actually carry these team fights.
So, you know, give me a ride, Showmaker bus, is what that says. I've seen a lot of Photoshops of Showmaker, and that is one of the better ones I've seen. Showmaker Bus, he didn't get any POG votes, but he certainly has an eclectic champion pool, this time just going for the Corki. But yeah, a lot of threats on the side of BNK. Feels like a little bit more even of a draft coming into game number 2, as D+ had to play on the red side. We'll see how it goes as we hop onto the Rift for game 2.
서건사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
Game number 2 starts now in our first match of the LCK Summer 2024 playoffs. And already DK have had their fun. They've picked some weird stuff in game 1 with the Nasus mid coming in big on this patch. A lot of people playing it in solo queue. We didn't expect to see it in game 1. And there it was. Maybe we should have expected it because it's D+ Kia and it's Showmaker.
And this is a very aiming pick, the Smolder. You know, he's been playing a lot of other picks because Smolder hasn't really been very meta relevant recently. But it is a very, I get all the gold, I sit back, I scale, I carry later. I'll take care of you, team. Don't worry about it. And we've
seen an escape.
Yeah,
right.
And we've seen D+ have very long games in the LCK, very long series as well. A lot of their series going the full distance. But with longer games, obviously come more powerful scaling options. And do have Henna putting the pressure on here very aggressively against Lucid at level 1. It won't really amount to anything but a ward. I just feel like this draft feels very D+, you know? And not in the fun part, but just in the aiming part. And you have a lot of facilitators. Now, Closer's only played this Zeri mid once. Bit of a late...
Not sure how Henna missed a volley from that range.
On a Cassante.
Very confusing, but it's not going to matter all too much. Lucid does just get to farm his jungle on Vision.
Will be fine to continue farming. Is it not going to be interrupted or pressured by Henna anymore with this lane swap? But yeah, I mean, this draft does scream protect aiming. And on the side of BNK, it screams, we got to get a tempo advantage, as Raptor is going to come over here.
Yeah. Lucid had a defensive ward, so he knows that Raptor does come in. There's a Hawk shot as well, which may not have seen Lucid, but it doesn't quite matter, just because there's so much pressure here. Flash away from King, and actually very smart. I think if he gets hit there, he could be in some trouble with 4 people from BNK on the bottom side of the map.
Just trying to get what experience he can. farming is kind of out of the question at this point for top laners. Poor old Cassante just trying to get anything he can. Is going to come over now to the top side of the map as Moham and Aiming are pushing these lanes freely. Notice that the CS is significantly in Aiming's favor, as Henna will kind of catch some of that gap here with this wave beyond the turret. Obviously, the Ashe will have, with the protection of lane swaps, a little bit more gold picked up here. But Smolder, Aiming cares about gold, but Smolder cares less about gold right now. He's really caring about stacks. We'll have enough gold to be relevant as King swaps back to the top lane, as I was mentioning before. And Aiming can head back down. We'll lose a little bit of farm, but still ahead. And D+, once again, piloting this early game very well. Lucid will be able to come over here and cross map and help make sure King gets back to lane safely. They're just one step ahead, basically, of BNK in every way right now. Even though we did see Raptor look for that aggressive play bottom side, the vision protected him, like you were alluding to, and it's going to be a nice start here. But I want to talk about Closer on Zeri, because it's not a pick that he has a lot of agency on, and I feel like Faker, Closer is a player who has his best games when he can be in control and he can be the one who starts team fights, set up picks for his team. And we saw it in the last game of Azir, you know, 0 deaths. He's having an incredible impact. When they're winning anything, it's basically because he set up the Emperor's Divide, he's playing very aggressively. Zeri can win skirmishes, but you're not going to be setting them up. You actually have to position well, you have to maximize damage, and has not been what Closer is known for. So it's a good pick here in this draft. It gives them a lot of scaling, gives them a lot of opportunities to front to back, especially into, you know, the tanky front line that D+ has. But if he gets caught or goes too aggressively, trying to look for an aggressive slide in, like we've seen a few of our AD carries and mid laners do. I'm not going to name any names.
Aiming.
Deft. I said I wasn't going to name names, Valdez.
I started. It's my fault. I mean, he's right there. Like, how could I not say his name?
But, you know, I'm curious to see if Closer can get it done, because I think he needs to be really, really on walking a tightrope in this game of trying to get those early team fight wins, trying to steal some kills away early and getting accelerated. Otherwise, the Smolder is one of the champs that does outscale Zeri. And you don't have great ways to lock the Zeri down, but it doesn't necessarily matter if Smolder could just hit a few Qs and the fight is over.
I think at least, you know, for the set of BNK, outside of Closer being a big setup man, they do have, you know, Clear and Duro on playmakers. I mean, Renekton can be a playmaker with some of his flanks and stuff like that. Clear has been very good at that, so they've got that in the bag, and then hopefully, you know, Closer, as you mentioned, can do the carry job on the Zeri, because he's really going to need to. I also have my eyes on Raptor. The Lilia has been really soaring in priority recently. I feel like especially into tank junglers, you can get some pretty insane value just because of your kit, but also because you can kind of just run around and have more threat than just a tank jungler will. As speaking of which, threatening a play on the bottom side, but Moham just gonna hop away.
It won't be punished, and no summoners to be expended there in the bottom lane. So much quieter game outside of the lane swap here than we saw in our previous game, where it was a lot of action, a lot of camps being stolen. Lucid's early pathing was shown there just a moment ago by production, how much time he spent in Raptor's jungle, how well he recovered from, you know, obviously having no lane presence bottom side, Raptor coming over there, taking the Gromp away and stuff like that. Still was able to counter jungle incredibly well, maintains a CS parity with Raptor at the moment. This lane is going pretty well for Clear. There's a significant advantage here in this top side.
Yeah. I mean, Kingan's job at the end of the day is to just absorb pressure and then eventually just be a front line for Smolder. And for Corki, we've definitely seen this before, but this lane is not going to be a fun time by any means. So, especially because he still doesn't have a splashback, which he had to use early on in the lane swap down in the bottom lane. Now, Lucid is going to, with the help of Moham, take down the first Drake, but 3 Grubs did go over to BNK.
Yeah, which is quite significant, especially when you have this Renekton in the side right now that is going to be doing some additional damage to turrets. Did already grab that first plate, if I'm not mistaken, so potentially looking to grab a second one here. Kingan is backing, so with Grub stacking up for this Renekton, might be able to accelerate him, because he is also one of those threats for this Smolder. Another Demolish proc. Clear is definitely getting value. Yeah. Even will proxy this wave here. So this is what you want to see from a first pick Renekton. This level of dominance, even with a lane swap, continue to put the pressure on. And like you said, Cassante will be okay with low eco, but let's see what Clear can get done with his advantage.
Yeah, for now it looks like they're just going to respect the dominance and the dominus. They're not going to try to 2v1 the Renekton behind the turret. As Lucid says, I have more important things to do, like farming my jungle. And probably a good idea because I think they don't have much kill threat onto a Renekton unless Clear's tanking a turret or something like that. So that's just going to happen, and there's really not much that King can do about it. And the jungler's getting ahead on the side of BNK as well, so you really begin to see bit of a gold balloon, a bit of a gold lead ballooning here for the side of BNK, about 1,200 ahead, even with no kills just yet, as here's the arrow, aiming just going to cleanse that. As Duro continuing, Moham also going to just hop away. And the kite does come out, but at the end of the day, DK do not want to fight by any means.
Yeah, Duro's not going to commit his flash to look for the knockback there onto Moham, just too risky to play that one out. And if Moham perfectly flashes it, you trade flashes. Sometimes can be a boon for the Alistar, but not really in this matchup. As Clear is pushed into turret, and that's all that's going to come out of that. But the gold lead here, you know, like you're saying, it's starting to balloon a little bit, but it's mostly just based on that lane swap protection top side, where Aiming wasn't able to pick up plates there with the swap. 2 plates went down bottom side, 3 plates went over here to this Renekton. They have a significant lead here. Closer isn't crushing the matchup by any means. We have seen other Zeri players absolutely smash Corki in lane. He doesn't really have a CS advantage. It's just quietly scaling. So that's the one lane where we're not seeing like, okay, this is a huge lead. But BNK using some of that prio now, set up some deep vision. Raptor's going to perhaps spot Lucid out here. That ward is about to expire. And they're playing to this top side really well, using the Ashe pressure extremely well as well. Down there in the bottom side, grabbing that cleanse, just keeping Moham and Aiming honest. As mentioned, Raptor will now see Lucid.
I feel like this game is just playing out the way you would expect it. I think that BNK could be a little bit more proactive, right? Still no kills here at 10 minutes, as now we're going to have a missed ult over the wall. The Maokai ult also coming over the wall, and now just a 1v1 between these two, and Clear has to flash the knockup, and the all-out coming in from the side of King, and he picks up first blood. As now Closer coming in with his own ultimate. No flash here for Kingen, so not the easiest spot for him. And should eventually be taken down. He's trying to trade here on a Closer. It's going to take quite a while to eventually take him down, and there they finally get him in the alcove as it is traded back.
Yeah, Kingen's got a goofy look on his face. I feel like all things considered, with how many resources they had to use, Showmaker didn't have prio. Kingen played that incredibly well. Did not get the all-out over the wall, but is able to still use it there to guarantee the kill onto Clear. Was kind of on a knife's edge there. Was able to make the play work. Very, very clutch. Otherwise, if he just dies there and they don't trade anything back, then it's kind of a disaster, right? As Clear goes ahead and expends his Q early, the empowered Q there. Kingen pulls him back, but opts not to go through the wall. And as Lucid's coming up, Clear is in trouble, has to flash away. Kingen flashes for the kill here. And Lucid is able to get away, but Kingen will not. The kill actually going over to Raptor here as well, and not Closer. Lily will still use the gold pretty well, but I think if you had to choose, would have probably given it over to the Zeri. A lot of this play is possible here for BNK because the Zeri has that prio mid, because the Renekton has so much prio top side. So they're using their prio in solo lanes incredibly well early. Will now also turn this into a 6 scrub setup here for said Renekton. So very strong start here for BNK.
Yeah. And I feel like this is kind of what you would expect with the Renekton and Lilia, the prio on that in the draft. You've got Ashe to help out, as you mentioned, and you want to be proactive. You want to make plays. Kind of funnily enough as well, Raptor on the Lilia, just as I mentioned before, against the tank, just gets to kind of free farm and is now ahead of her top laner, which makes sense with the lane swap and stuff. But BNK really trying to put on the pressure here. They want to get ahead farther on DK, and they don't want to let Aiming and Showmaker just free farm here. So trying to get some other big wins on the map, and they should be able to take down this first blood turret in the top lane as well. It's going to be some gold given over to Aiming.
The Gold King!
Yeah.
Securing the gold, but will not unfortunately be able to alter reality here with that first brick going their way. A lot of plates still down on that bottom side turret. Kingen is farming them in return.
Nice little dodge. I'm not sure if they, Closer alone could have been able to really capitalize on that, but
yeah, I don't think so.
It's still going to be a nice dodge.
And they do get the Dragon, D+, so it is going to be a 2 Drake lead for them. We'll see what the Soul ends up being, because that will be very, very important. Could be Infernal or Hextech with the Smolder.
Or Chemtech.
Probably not, right?
Lucid.
Yeah, it's Hex-Tech. So this 2 Drake lead for D+ is very significant because if you have the Corky Rockets, the Smolder Poke, slowing people down in team fights, it just gets way easier to play out. Saplings, right? And the Zeri getting slowed means she's easier to lock down, so it does feel really nice here that D+ were able to prioritize that, because otherwise it's like, okay, well, the Grubs are going over. That's made an impact in this game already, as we do have an all-out.
Yeah, all-out in the bottom lane. Here comes Lucid as well, just for insurance, I guess. I feel like Kingen might have also just been able to take him down. Here comes that TP a bit late from the Zeri, but now going in is Lucid. He's going to be able to pick up the kill, and Closer can't do much, but Kingen once again kind of in a really unfortunate spot, as he will go down eventually. Big rotation over from the side of BNK to trade it back.
Yeah, no one's given Closer the kills here, but at least this time it's an AD carry that picks it up. Second time around here onto Kingen. Lucid does get out, but it's a trade of kills. And this is D+, you know, feeling, I think, pretty happy with how this is going, because the Zeri isn't getting super online with 2 assists. And you're looking at, okay, we're managing some of this pressure incredibly well because we scale better. Again, in theory, 79 stacks currently on aiming, not the world's greatest pace, but it is still, once he hits like up to 125, is going to start stacking a lot faster, and then will end up being a big threat. But Closer does grab a bunch of gold down here of plates. As now plates expire, we'll also get a turret. So he is online fairly soon. We'll have that first item coming up in just a moment. You can see all the plate gold they've been able to pick up. 5 in the top side with that Renekton, plus first brick, and then bottom side 4 plates, and then the turret. So lots of money in the hands of BNK. They haven't been able to get that tempo advantage through team fighting per se, but by taking out the objectives on the map, starting to be quite strong, as even with the Blade of the Ruin King nerf, will still be first item here for Closer. I was going to mention it earlier, but now I guess we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't think the nerf was too significant.
It was a nerf, and I mean, Zeri was building it a lot before it got nerfed. I suppose she's just going to continue building it. At least that's the build that Closer's going to go for. And, I mean, at the end of the day, he's still going to be scaling up, and he's really going to be the big carry for the side of BNK in this later game. As Flap does come out, aiming does not have to cleanse, but a lot of damage done to him because he wanted to hold on to that. And the pressure in all these lanes, especially with the Rift Herald, also picked up here from the side of BNK. Gonna look to try to get a big chunk out of this mid-tier 1. Yeah,
I'm gonna put the Alistar in this one, crash it through. Enduro should be able to get out. Very difficult to punish this with the Rel in this situation with an aiming sitting on components.
Did you see that Moham didn't kill the Rift Herald because he wanted to give the 25 gold to aiming?
Of course I did. Of course I've seen aiming.
Could have like just killed it right away, saved a little time. He's like, nah, aiming needs the gold.
He does want the gold. I don't know if it matters that much in this case, but you know, I love to see these little things. You know,
he's the gold king, and Showmaker might be the king of dying at this point. Doesn't know about the Renekton, has to flash, and he won't be the king of dying, but he does flash away.
Flash king.
Yeah.
Mid king becomes flash king. Well, that ends up being a pretty significant get here for BNK, as this is kind of where D+, their MO right now is like, okay, we saved mid turret. Maybe we can get a turret bottom side if we push deep enough. Showmaker is thwarted, though. Forced to flash. The bottom turret's still up. So BNK just playing the map incredibly well. There's a lot of standing gold on the map for D+ to get if they get control of the map at any point. So a big team fight win for them, for example, will really allow them to catch up in gold very, very quickly because of that. But right now, it's pretty impressive the way that BNK are playing, and they're going to group over now towards this dragon. You have to imagine 50 seconds or so until that spawns. Showmaker's teleport's coming back online, but he's already here on the bottom side of the map. And this is maybe where that big fight needs to happen for D+ to come back. BNK obviously would love to get some additional kills here, grab a kill or two for Closer finally, get him on his second item.
Yeah, I feel like as DK, you really don't want to give over free Drakes, but they also do have a little bit of a leash with those early 2 Drakes to say, okay, if the team fight isn't looking great, if we don't have good setup, we can give you 1, maybe 2, because eventually, you know, they'll get their Smolder online, the Corky will hit his 2-item spike, and you're going to be feeling much better about taking the team fights. I feel like this is one of those games that's very slow. We're just scaling on both sides, and it's really just going to come down to 5v5s. And for DK, I don't necessarily want to take 5v5s yet, so it might just be up to them to say, okay, if we have a good setup, we can fight. Otherwise, They just give them a couple of drinks.
I think it's non-negotiable for BNK though. They have to. They not only do they want this dragon, but they want the fight with it. As here comes the arrow.
Yeah, I mean it's going to hit the tank jungler, but they are getting a bit of damage into Lucid. They have certainly not zoned him away from the Drake though.
Yeah, gonna be starting this one up now, and Kingan's coming down. Didn't have to teleport. D+ still want to play around with this.
I mean, if they're going to give Lucid free entry onto this, he has his ult, and Duro's just going in, trying to zone by himself. Lucid still in the Drake, he smites it down, and they get the kill on a Raptor. Big knockup, though, and now the Zeri's going to go bad. It's clear. There's also in the backline a lot of empty targets here for BNK to try to go for. Meanwhile, Kingan trying to go 1v3, will get a kill, maybe a second one as the knockup comes in, and he will be denied a second one. As BNK will win the fight at the end of it all, but the Drake did go to DK.
Yeah, so they have sole point, but I mean, a ton of money now in Closer's hands, finally able to secure those kills. I mean, Henna was practically AFK at the start of the fight. Not entirely sure why he backed off so deep here into the jungle, but isn't actually here at the start of the fight, but that might have been a boon for him, as when this fight does break out, it's Duro really who does the heavy lifting. Lucid gets taken out after he secures the dragon. 2 kills go over to Closer early, and then Henna's like, oh man, this Cassante character is really annoying. There was a reason why I didn't show up for this fight. He does end up going down here. Kingan does his best to at least get something back for D+. But, I mean, a lot of money where it needs to be now, I feel, finally for BNK. Bit of a sloppy start to that fight with Henna just not being there, but a great turnaround. Duro doesn't hit that knock-up the way he did. Maybe they just get completely snowballed against, and D+ win the dragon and end up getting that gold lead back in their hands. But instead, it is a great play from the Alistar.
So, why does Aiming have 133 stacks at 1930 in the game? This is one of the slowest stacking we have seen in quite a while.
Yeah, he has, again, just like last game, like with the lane swap and not going into mid very quickly, he hasn't been able to just sit there and stack them super hard. And also, because of the lane swap, you also lose, okay, Raptor.
Yeah, Raptor's in a really awkward spot, pulled under the turret. Now, he's not alone, and so he just presses ult and leaves. And that's all that happens. Nothing else happens. The Lucid thinking about going for some kind of engage. They were pretty deep in the jungle, but again, for DK, sitting back, scaling, they got another Drake. They don't want to fight unless it's perfect. And
without Raptor's ult, it's kind of awkward here for BNK to try to make a proactive play on Baron this early into the game. Sitting on a 2-item Ashe, 2-item Zeri, but it's Runins. You know, you're not able to rush a Baron really, unfortunately, for BNK. I think if you looked for a turn if you had Lilia ult, maybe that could be the angle. D+ obviously can't start a Baron either, so we are going to slow down after some aggressive warding there from BNK. But back to the aiming discussion, you know, when you lane swap too, you interact with the enemy champions less because you're just hitting a turret, so you're stacking less in the lane. And so I think that's part of why he's behind. But even when you add all these things up, he's a little bit suspect that he is so late, because we're normally looking at, like, at best, you know, the fastest is like 19 minutes. 22 is where you're like, okay, should have it by now.
Yeah, we've seen some from, like, in the old days when Smolder was very meta before he was nerfed. We used to see, like, some of our east side teams, or like southeast side teams, could sometimes hit it at like 25 to 27 minutes from behind. And they're like really trying to claw back into the game, but this game doesn't really feel like one of those, you know? This is aiming. He's had mostly free farm in the top lane. And yeah, like you mentioned, you know, he's not getting a lot of stacks from hitting enemy champions, but either way, I mean, he's going to hit it eventually. He's at 152, which is, again, not very fast. But they got the Drake, and they're just kind of waiting around.
Yeah, I mean, they have the opportunity to just say no to every Drake fight now, and that's why BNK kind of have to continue to pressure this idea of Baron, because D+ could just walk away from every dragon fight and side lane a little bit and just let Smolder sit there and farm the stacks. And so your best angle is to try to force a Baron fight that D+ aren't ready for, because they haven't gotten that break point for the stacks just yet. D+ they've been doing a really good job, though, of hovering around that Baron, setting up good vision on the Baron, making sure there's no way BNK can actually steal that out from under them or trick them. They also understand the composition isn't going to be great at rushing Baron at this point in time. So they've done their due diligence, and this Soul is kind of like checkmate, basically, for D+. I mean, it's not going to win them the game outright, but it just gives them so much power. There's absolutely no way BNK can give this up. But yet, D+ don't want to fight either. So yeah, they're basically like just constantly checking Baron and making sure BNK can't say, oh, okay, like we're going to get Baron, then get Prio, then get the Dragon.
So Kingen is just about to face check. Now, it's not Rumble this time, so maybe he's okay. And you know what? They really respect it. There's not a lot of vision in the river right now for the side of BNK, and so they're just going to let him go. Closer, meanwhile, free farm in the top lane. Nobody's up there for the side of DK.
He does have teleport, so there's really no risk inherently to just shoving these waves into this inner.
Yeah, on the side of DK, by the way, they do have a couple of 2-item spikes on both of their AD carries, so while they don't have their Smolder quite online just yet, they're still pretty strong.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have a big Magnet Storm, that sometimes might just be enough to turn the tide of this fight with the Mom ultimate still relevant, even without those stacks, but it is very difficult to win this fight without an isolated target getting blown up first. And they just don't have the same setup with Equalizer in this draft that they did in Game 1. So playing it very slow, very patient here as Kingen goes into the mid lane to clear the wave. But BNK not being decisive, and this composition is a little bit awkward without an arrow connecting.
They just want to try to gank clear. Aiming is frontlining against Renekton, and the rest of BNK, they're not doing the Dragon, they're just running down to try to save him. And I don't think that's going to work. An arrow's going to come in, it hits the Maokai. And now you don't have your Renekton. Bit of damage does come in now, but now the pick onto Closer. He is so dead. 100-0. Down he goes. Immense pick comes out from Kingen. And now just the rest of them are just trying to run away. Lucid is probably going to give his life for this, and a lot of damage coming out from Henna, actually. But eventually, it's not clean, but it's still an ace from the side of DK, and it's 7k damage from Showmaker.
Yeah, that could just be the soul going over. They don't have a jungler, but I mean, there's no one to contest, and with that final kill going over, everyone dead. I mean, that should just be enough, even with the low health bars. Dragon doesn't do that much damage. And look at the minimap. Like you were saying, Clear is just greeting down here, trying to set up for a long con flank and then control the bottom side prio. The rest of the team was just kind of standing around, hoping that D+ were going to pull the trigger first and walk into their Zeri comp. And to watch Kingen, he's like, oh, you're going into me? Full story, bro. It just pulls him completely into the middle of the team fight. And what did I say about Closer Zeri? Will we see him overextend? Will we see him slide in? This is less of a mistake from him and more of a capitalization from Kingen, but you have to be aware that Cassante can get on top of you if you go in like that, and he is punished so hard for it. I feel like 2 games back-to-back, Kingen has had a rough laning phase, tough time in the early game, low agency, he's given up plates, but his plays, despite the deficit, have been massive once again here in this game.
He's just a clutch master. That's what he does, and he's clutching it out again. Now Showmaker trying to go 1v1, but it's not 1v1. There's the croc, but Showmaker gonna get the kill anyway. It's actually Lucid Sapling that gets the kill. Meanwhile, this fight on the bottom side is totally messy. Henna's not even in it. As yes, Showmaker will bite the dust. There is an arrow to hit aiming, and he's just barely out of turret range. Double kill goes over to Clear, as this one is absolutely a mess, but they might still be able to take down Clear into the turret. Henna's still not here, he's just in mid lane. And will they get Clear? I guess not, but it's still going to be a one-team fight to DK.
Yeah, they end up winning the fight. Losing their jungler and their mid laner, though, means that there's nothing they could do as a result of said win. They get a turret. That's going to keep them closer here in gold. The Hextech Soul is just so oppressive, though. I mean, when you think about how you look at the gold, you're like, oh, is it winnable for BNK? And then you start to see how oppressive some of these chase downs can be, and how Smolder is, even without stacks, like putting a decent amount of damage into these champions. Imagine what it's going to be like when he actually has it, and then when he Qs, everybody gets slowed, and then he starts burning them down. Then he Qs again, and then again. And yeah, this fight wasn't clean. Showmaker was cut off, but was able to at least take Closer out of the fight. Otherwise, this could have been a disaster for D+, which could have led to BNK getting the Baron. So kind of clutches it out there, and then they end up grabbing the top turret. Meanwhile, over here... Yeah,
trying to kill an Alistar, not the easiest target. He is going to go unbreakable as Closer here as well. Kingen is not unkillable, so he does have to back away. But a nice Scuttle Crab pick up there. Going to clear out all the vision around the Baron. And they do have an insane amount of Baron damage as well.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're definitely in the we can rush Baron down territory as Lucid ults.
Yep, just going to zone them away. And with the Hextech Soul, I mean, Henna just doesn't get to play the game. He's getting poked down from screens away. Imagine trying to play Ashe into this. It's just not fair.
It is not fair. Aiming still hasn't hit his breakpoint, by the way, which is kind of insane as well. I don't know what he's sitting on.
Yeah, well,
Closer,
they're really trying to kill Moham here, and they might be able to. It looks very close. But eventually, he does go down. Kingen trying to frontline now. A little sleep on Lucid. They want to get some kind of value out of this, but Kingan's still standing guard, and they're looking to turn this one around. RDK, as now another engage goes in on a Kingan, but Duro's just dead, and now the bouncing damage from the side of Aiming. They get the all out here on a clear, as finally 225 is hit, and Aiming is just running them down alongside of Showmaker, who is full health, and it's going to be another messy fight win to the side of DK.
You just can't, if you go in like that, you can't get out against Hextech Soul. They will slow you down and take you out, and as that breakpoint is hit, he hits 225. They execute damage, the threshold appears on the health bars, and that is just the sign for B&K that we have lost the fight, and they are likely about to lose the gold lead that they've had for this entire game. DK uncontested on this Baron. There's no vision here. There's nothing that a sad Lilia could do to come over here and look to steal, and that's just going to be the Baron going over. That will be the gold lead as well. As yes, Moam is caught here, and I was very worried when Closer goes over, but consider it's just a Corki and a Smolder, so there's not anyone who can lock down this area in this case, except Moam, who's already used his tools. And going in here as Duro with the Sleep Cup, I get the idea, because you're like, okay, we can set something up here. Maybe this is the moment where Closer actually gets all the work done. We wipe them, we get the Baron, we're back in this game. But as you can see, when he goes in and it gets slowed and the Hextech slows continue to stack up, there is just no way out. You cannot go, oh, well, actually, never mind. I don't think I want to continue to fight with you, because you're locked into that fight by Hextech Soul.
Uh-oh. Duro does have his ult available. Lucid, though, so tanky, and a big ult over the top, but Clear's got a nice angle. Is it going to be enough? The damage, though, from the side of Smolder is just insane. Another lockdown comes in from Lucid as Henna is backlining, and he's dead. Well, that was confusing. Fear X are just going to run away, as now Closer just trying to get out of this one, but he's going to be all outed, as in goes the Cassante. It's a triple kill for Aiming, and they're looking for a bit more. That was an insane amount of damage from the Lilia, but it just doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, and it looks like this might just be the beginning of the end. Two very, honestly, very easy team fights here for D+. I mean, the last one looked a little bit shaky at the beginning, but this Hextech Soul is paying off in dividends. And I mean, yeah, he took a long time to get his stacks, but Aiming, he's got 8 kills now. He is stacked, and they're going to end the game.
They're definitely trying to do so. Duro, I think, by himself, not really able to do much. He's slowed up again. He goes in. It's desperation, just trying to buy some time, and he will be able to do that, but the turrets and the wave are still alive. They'll take down both the Nexus turrets, and there's not much that B&K can do. Clear goes in. He dies, and Henna and Raptor are just zoned away. All the slows, all the ticking damage, and Henna just barely going to avoid that death. DK playing with their food because, well, they can. As in goes Raptor, and down goes Raptor, as does Closer. That's going to be the end of game 2, as D+ Kia took them a while, but once they hit their spike, they won the game.
Yeah, it was definitely a great start for B&K. I mean, a much closer game than our last one, because they actually kept things really competitive early. Were utilizing their solo lane prio extremely well, got all those plates, had a decent gold advantage, were able to get some kills onto Closer on that dragon fight. But ultimately, the soul goes over to D+, and then from that point on, everything just gets so tough, especially with how well D+ played around that Baron. They made sure there was no way that that Baron could be taken before they were ready to fight. They made that clutch play happen where they collapsed onto Clear, killed him. That was a huge win. They also had Kingan's clutch play during that one fight where they're trying to chase him down. Zeri going in, Closer ults, and then Kingan flashes and picks him off. There's some really clutch fights for D+, and then they're immediately just in the driver's seat for the rest of the way. I mean, you could see very clearly around 24 minutes when they started to get a little bit more control. Then, bam, they win those critical fights, get the Baron, and then there's a huge spike in the gold, and D+ just run it down to the Nexus and blow it up.
Hextech Soul and Corki and Smolder, 30 minutes into the game with a Maokai, you're probably going to win. And that's not to take anything away from King and Moham, who also had fantastic games and setups there. So that's game number 2, D+ Kia in the lead and on match point in this first series of playoffs. We're going to take a break and bring back game number 3 afterwards.
박아줘.
카우부터
시계 있어, 시계.
자, 한탄 한 번 더 해도 돼.
아 우리 피 없는데.
괜찮아. 더 해도 돼.
알리. 한타 한번 더 하자 천천히.
야, 스몰 도니까 천천히. 플래시 다 없어.
야 정한 애쉬홍아.
넥서스 치자. 들어가야 돼.
애쉬.
야, 박아.
죽이자.
죽여.
나 애쉬
나, 잠깐만.
대리 풀떡 볼게.
나 공 있는데. 봐줄래?
나 잠깐만.
오케이.
나이스.